Hello and welcome to Cooking the Books with Heather. Today we're going to be making sort of a base recipe that we need to make the actual dish that we want to make next week. We are going to be making freezer chicken stock from Ashley Christensen's It's Always Freezer Season. So I make chicken stock all the time. It's really simple. This is just sort of a throw it together and cook it kind of thing. But I did follow her measurements mostly. So in this pot, I have bits of chicken that I store in the freezer. So when I have chicken wings and I take the little bits off, some of it's still frozen. So I take the tips off. Those are great for chicken stock. When I spatchcock a chicken, I throw the backbone in the freezer. There are necks. And and when I make chicken thighs that I want boneless but skin on, kind of have to do that myself. So I throw the bones in the bag and all of this is ready to make chicken stock. I'm supposed to be able to put 8 quarts of water in here after I put everything else in here. And this is an 8-quart pot. So that's not going to happen because there's a lot of volume taken up by the chicken. I think this is slightly less even than she says, but it'll be fine. We're starting with supposedly 8 quarts of water, but we're supposed to end up with 8 cups because we're going to reduce it and reduce it. So I'm not too worried about it. But the only things we really need to add here, we have some alliums, leeks, onions, garlic, green onions, shallots. I have some shallot, some yellow onion, and a few cloves of garlic in here. I usually take the skins off. You do not have to do that. I've definitely seen people use the skins, and sometimes they save them for stock. I've seen way too many like bits with mold on it that I don't like to do that. But I mean, I didn't worry about, there's a little bit of skin there. I didn't worry too much about that. And they're all just sort of roughly cut up into chunks. And then we have aromatic vegetables is what she calls this. She says carrots, celery, herbs. You could throw some parsley or something in here if you were doing something that you wanted to have a specific flavor profile where you wanted maybe cilantro or dill. You could do that. I'm just staying very simple here. So I've got some carrots and some celery. And now we cover it with water. I will see how much I actually can get in here, but I'll let you know in just a second. I'm gonna stop there. It's gonna be very heavy to take this to the stove, but this is 4 3/4-ish quarts. That's all I could fit into my 8-quart stock pot. I'm not too worried about that. I think it'll be just fine. But we're not putting any salt or pepper in here. Although you could, she says, anything else you want to throw in. You could throw in a bay leaf if you wanted. You could throw in whole peppercorns. I do that. Just anything that you have on hand that you want to help flavor your stock, you can throw in. But now everything is super easy. We're going to bring this to a boil, reduce it to a simmer, leave the lid off, no lid, because we want it to reduce. Once it comes to a simmer, we're going to let it simmer gently for 90 minutes. So we'll be back in a couple hours probably for it to come up to a boil and then reduce to a simmer and boil for 90 minutes. It'll take us probably almost 2 hours for that. So we'll show you what we do after that. Okay, so it's starting to come to a boil and you can see it's got this sort of scummy stuff on top. And the recipe says to take that off. So I'm gonna take off as much as I can. Really, it doesn't bother me. And in the end, it won't look like scum. I assume it's just proteins floating to the surface. But I've got a paper towel on a plate. just to hold it. Try not to get any of the onions or bits of veggies, but I'll get some of this off. And if I see a lot, I might take more off at other times, but that's all we're doing right now. And then I will turn it down to a simmer. This has been going for almost 90 full minutes at this, gentle simmer. And it has barely, so I put the rest of the 5th quart of water in there, but I haven't added any more, and it is not even down to what I expect 4 quarts of water to be based on, when I added it where it was on the pan. And 4 quarts would have been where it was if we had started with 8. So I'm going to let it go for probably an extra 30 minutes. I don't think you can go wrong at this point with even like 4 hours or so, just letting it go. But I have other things to do, so I'm going to wait an extra 30 minutes and see how it is at that point. Okay, so now we are about where I think 4 quarts should be with all the solids, and I'm going to strain it into this bowl through the strainer and discard all of the solids. And then it's going to go back in here to reduce by half. So put it back in, reduce it by half. I think she says about another 45 minutes, but we'll let you know how long it takes us. So I actually ended up simmering my stock after I strained it for 90 minutes, which is twice the amount of time that she says, because it certainly was not down to 8 cups of stock before that, but now it is, and that was just about perfect. So I have my stock cooling here. She says to cool it for until it's about 70 degrees before you put it in the refrigerator to cool, and then the freezer. So I'm going to leave it like this to cool. I like this particular, you guys can't see it, but this is a measuring cup that also pours from the bottom, so the fat floats up and you can pour off the defatted broth from the bottom. So I will pour off this and then pour this in there, and then we'll have our defatted broth, because the fat just doesn't really have much flavor, and it's it will float to the top, and anyway, we don't need that part. So the way I am going to store it, first, the amount I need for my recipe is about 3 cups. So I'm going to put that in this. And so this is just a plastic takeout container. If you get soup at a Chinese restaurant, or probably a lot of places, you get these. And I'm going to put this in the refrigerator, maybe the freezer, depending on when I think I'm going to make my recipe for that. But for everything else, I like to have relatively small amounts of stock, because sometimes I only need like a cup or a half a cup, and you can't really take that out of a quart of stock very easily without defrosting the whole thing. So what I'm going to do is, I have these large ice cubes that generally, these ones I use for food. We have other ones that we only use for ice, but this is approximately half a cup each. So I'm going to pour them in here, freeze them, and then pop them out into a gallon size freezer bag. And that's it. And we'll have, a freezer bag full of stock cubes that I can use for whatever I need. So we probably won't have any further information or review of this. I mean, it looks like good stock. It smells delicious. I think we probably could have boiled it longer in the beginning. Most recipes that I see online are like 4 to 6 hours. And as long as you're not doing something that can get really bitter, like a green, like leeks, I've found if you boil them way too long can make your stock bitter, that would be fine here. So you could do 4 to 6 hours, no problem. Boil it as long as you want. Make sure it doesn't boil out too much. Keep the solids covered while you're boiling it, while you're simmering it. But yeah, so we're going to cool this and put these in here before they're fully cool, because if we did this right, these will be gelatin when they're cool. They will be almost solid when it's in the refrigerator. So we need to go ahead and put it in these things before it gets that cold. So I'm gonna have to do that tonight. And stay tuned to see what we use this for, probably next week. And if you enjoyed watching me make this, please give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, share with your friends, and come back and watch me make something with this next week.